You are welcome to this channel, Oscar Ancient Story Legend. Today, we journey into another timeless story and ancient history, passed down from our forefathers. Let's begin.
January 1897, a dense rainforest path near the village of Benin in the Kingdom of Benin, one of the oldest, most powerful states in West Africa. A column of 250 men moves through the trees. At the front walks a British official named James Phillips. His men carry rifles, hidden inside trade boxes, wrapped in cloth, disguised as gifts. He is marching, uninvited, toward the sacred capital of a kingdom that has ruled itself for over 500 years.
He has been warned not to come. He does not listen. By nightfall, almost every man in his column will be dead. For centuries, Benin City was not what outsiders imagined when they pictured Africa. European visitors who reached it compared its size and order to Amsterdam. It had broad avenues, a royal palace covered in bronze plaques, and a monarchy, the Oba, whose authority was treated as close to sacred. By the 1890s, that independence had become a problem for Britain. The Royal Niger Company and the British Foreign Office wanted Benin's trade routes. Palm oil, rubber, ivory opened fully to British merchants. Benin's Oba of Benin refused to surrender control. He restricted trade with the British, protected his kingdom's autonomy, and, critically, he had not signed away his sovereignty the way other regional rulers had. To the British administration in the Niger Coast Protectorate, this was intolerable. A kingdom this wealthy, this well-organized, sitting outside their control, in the middle of the scramble for Africa, Acting Consul General James Phillips decided to force the issue. He planned to march into Benin City, uninvited, with an armed escort disguised as a diplomatic gift-bearing party, and depose the Oba himself. There was one problem. He was told explicitly not to come. Benin was in the middle of its most sacred religious period, the Igwe festival, during which the Oba could not receive foreign visitors. Messengers reached Phillips twice, warning him to turn back. He kept walking. Inside Benin City, the Oba's council was split. Oba of Benin himself argued for restraint, let the British party come, hear them out, avoid provoking a war he knew Benin could not win against modern rifles and gunboats. But the Ayase, Benin's military commander, saw it differently. An armed foreign column, marching toward the capital during a forbidden period, wasn't diplomacy. It was an invasion in disguise. He gave the order. On January 4, 1897, near the village of Benin, Benin warriors under a commander named Ologbosere struck the column in the forest. It was over in minutes. Of the roughly 250 men in Phillips's party, only 2 British survivors escaped alive, badly wounded, and fled through the bush to raise the alarm. Phillips himself was killed, so were most of his officers. News reached London within days, framed in stark terms. British men had been slaughtered by an African kingdom that refused to submit. The message from British officials was blunt, that the empire could not be seen to let this go unanswered. The killing at Benin gave Britain something it had wanted for years, a justification. Within a week, Britain had authorized a military response of a completely different scale. Rear Admiral Harry Rawson was placed in command of a force of 1,200 men, Royal Marines, sailors, and colonial troops, with explicit orders: burn the towns of Benin and capture the Oba to be hanged wherever he was found. This was no longer a diplomatic mission. It was named, plainly, the Benin Punitive Expedition. Before we continue with this story, if you're enjoying it, please take a moment to subscribe, like the video, and share it. That way, more people can hear these timeless stories and ancient histories from our forefathers, just as you are hearing them now. Your support helps this channel grow and keeps our history alive. In just over a month from the ambush, the entire operation was assembled, transported, and launched. On February 9, 1897, the invasion began. The British force advanced on multiple fronts toward the capital, retracing part of the route where Phillips's men had died, passing the site of the ambush along the way. Benin's warriors resisted, but they were facing an enemy with a decisive advantage in modern weaponry, artillery, and numbers, moving with total resolve. The kingdom's defenses, built to withstand regional rivals, were not built to withstand this. On February 18, 1897, just 9 days after the invasion began, Benin City fell. What happened next would define how the world understood Benin for the next century. British forces entered the capital and set it ablaze. Some accounts call the fire accidental, others suggest it was deliberate. Either way, one of the great architectural achievements of West Africa, a city of broad avenues and a palace unlike anything else on the continent, burned to the ground. Inside the royal palace, British soldiers found something almost no one in Europe had anticipated. Thousands of intricately cast bronze and ivory artworks, plaques, statues, ceremonial objects, some centuries old, representing one of the most advanced bronze casting traditions in world history. They looted virtually all of it. The scale was staggering. Palace treasuries, shrines, and royal chambers were stripped bare. What has since become known as the Benin Bronzes was carried out of the smoking city and shipped back to Britain, where much of it was auctioned off to cover the cost of the expedition itself and dispersed into private collections and museums across Europe and America. The human cost is harder to measure. 8 British soldiers were killed during the assault. The number of Benin soldiers and civilians who died was never counted by the British, but accounts from the time describe it as severe. Oba of Benin fled the burning city. He was captured months later. Rather than the execution the British had originally ordered, he was tried, deposed, and exiled to Calabar, where he would live out the rest of his life, never to rule his kingdom again. Several of his chiefs were not so fortunate. Put on trial in a courtroom with no defense offered on their behalf, some took their own lives rather than face judgment. Others were executed by firing squad. The Kingdom of Benin, a monarchy that had endured for roughly 6 centuries, ceased to exist as an independent state. It was absorbed into the British colonial territory that would eventually become Nigeria. Today, the Benin Bronzes sit scattered across museums in London, Berlin, New York, and beyond. Some of the finest examples of African metalwork ever created, viewed by millions of people who often have no idea how they got there. In recent years, that has started to change. Museums and governments across Europe have come under growing pressure, and in some cases have begun taking action to return what was taken in 9 days in February 1897. The fire that consumed Benin City in 1897 didn't just end a kingdom. It became one of the most contested chapters in the story of colonialism itself, a debate that, more than a century later, is still not settled. Thank you for watching to the end. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss a story. This channel is home to timeless stories and ancient histories from our forefathers, and the next one is waiting for you.